It's another year, so we got another Call of Duty, and as always, it has sparked a debate about skill-based matchmaking. There has been a ton of discourse on both sides, including a lot of it coming from content creators who are against Activision's choice to include it. Now, are these complaints warranted, or are COD players just mad that they have to get good? Okay, for those that don't know, skill-based matchmaking is basically what it sounds like. Even in pub lobbies, you're going to be matched up with players that have a similar skill level to you. And almost every year when a new COD comes out, the internet gets filled with players complaining about it. Now, you might be asking yourself why. Playing against opponents that have a similar skill level to you, rather than someone who started the game an hour ago, seems like a perfectly reasonable thing. In fact, it would almost make more sense if people were upset that this wasn't the case. Right? Well, to a large part of the COD community, no. Many fans of the series think that a heavily tuned MMR system should not exist outside of ranked modes. Recently, Tim the Tatman actually came out and explained that SBMM is the main reason he's switched over to BRs over the last few years.
After streaming Battle Royales for majority of my career, I'll throw that in air quotes, that's when I really love streaming. Can I be completely honest with you guys? If SBMM wasn't a thing, I would stream multiplayer.
But Tim isn't the only one. Doc and plenty of other content creators have also shared their thoughts on the discourse. But a lot of people who are on the outside or even enjoy skill-based matchmaking think that streamers are just complaining because it's not good for content. Gone are the days that streamers could hop into any lobby and just stomp a father of four that was just trying to unwind after an 8-hour workday. But to be completely fair, there are actually a lot of good arguments against skill-based matchmaking, some that I didn't even understand myself until now. I just think that streamers and content creators aren't doing a very good job explaining it. So let's try to break them down. Like I said before, the idea of skill-based matchmaking does make sense, and it exists in a lot of multiplayer games. And in a perfect game, it would probably be the best way to go about handling things. But as we know, COD is a franchise that's far from perfect. There is a lot of cheese in COD, from slide canceling to other insanely broken metas. And although pulling off these annoying mechanics isn't difficult, casual players likely aren't going to put in the effort to use them. But as you get better and start getting put in more difficult lobbies, they're going to be filled to the brim with f***ing crack kids moving around like demons, even if you choose to not play like that. And if you're still a little confused, it's perfectly fine. So I think it's very important that I hammer how big the gap between a low skill player and a high skill player is. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's a completely different game.
I'll cut off the rest. Off. Frontina. You too. One more me. My fucking god, Jesus.
The main argument is that the game is just not balanced enough to make pubs enjoyable at all skill levels and all playstyles. A lot of above average players just want to experience the same thing as everyone else. They want to hop into pubs, practice accuracy, and grind out skins. But as casual players eventually move on from the game, hardcore fans and those who choose to stick with it are just going to be stuck in these cheese strat lobbies. On top of all that, COD also used to be a franchise that was best experienced with friends. But with a highly tuned SBMM, not everyone is always going to be on the same level. But that means at least one person in your group is going to get dragged up or dragged down. Meaning a good player is just going to get put into a server where they farm bots, or worse, a weaker player is going to have to suffer in a sweaty lobby. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem like a good way to keep people coming back to the game. COD also used to be about just providing an arcadey fun experience where you could go on a tear and use fun kill streaks, but as Courage pointed out, that's not what the game has turned into.
When you play multiplayer matches today, take a look at the overall kill death ratio of everyone in the lobby at the end. You'll see very few high tier streaks and overall players who stand out from that. And what that does is it creates a lot of frustration as a player. You never have an opportunity to pop off. Every single game feels like you're playing for $1 million. And honestly, it gets really exhausting because there's never any variance other than spawn, get a kill, die, or spawn, get 2 kills and die.
Sure. Get good is always a fun argument to make, and content creators do have something to gain if there is no skill-based matchmaking. But don't forget, there is a larger fear that looms over the entire multiplayer experience. If above average players want to enjoy the game without having to sweat, they're just going to leave to Warzone, which is exactly what happened with Modern Warfare 2019. After its first month or so, Modern Warfare 2019 started to fall off a bit until Warzone caused the game to explode again. But ever since then, almost all of Activision's resources have gone into Warzone, leaving those who want to enjoy the traditional multiplayer experience in the dust. And if you want actual evidence of that, look no further than the past 2 releases. Cold War and Vanguard just became new ways for Activision to funnel more weapons and cosmetics into Warzone. The multiplayer experience almost got no love. Modern Warfare 2 is supposed to be different, but if the main player base starts to leave again to avoid the sweat, we're probably just going to see the same thing happen again. Now, for full transparency, I've put about 30 hours into the game so far, and I'm having a pretty good time with it. Maybe this says more about my skill level, but I feel like movement just isn't as powerful as it used to be because I don't find myself slamming my fucking head against the wall every match I'm in. Servers definitely feel more challenging than they did back in, let's say, Black Ops 1 or 2, and I enjoy that, but I'm also perfectly fine with hopping into ranked if I want to experience that. At the end of the day, the argument isn't completely against lobbies being more fair skill-wise. They absolutely should be. There has almost always been some form of silent MMR in the COD franchise, and to say there shouldn't be is kind of silly. But I think an argument as to how precise the ranking algorithm needs to be in a pub lobby is a perfectly reasonable one to have. Ranked modes now exist in COD for a reason, and maybe letting off the gas a little with SBMM will force devs to put more work into making the competitive experience more rewarding and fleshed out.
All you're doing is going to the next tier of sweat lobbies without seeing any reward for it. For example, if I play Valorant or Apex Legends and I get better and I work on my accuracy and I work on my teamwork and I rank up and I get better, then I move up the ranks and I see my rewards. I get better rewards at the end of the season and I'm in the better lobbies and I see that I'm in the better lobbies. Well, with a silent MMR system, all you're doing is moving up the ranks without having any of that benefit and without having any opportunity to have your pop-off games.
But like I said before, this is actually a much larger conversation about game balance as a whole and what exactly Activision wants their game series to look like. And although I still see arguments on both sides of the subject, it feels like every year the conversation just gets so caught up in itself. And then Warzone comes out and takes over the game again.
What do you think about skill-based matchmaking?
Bro, my first time playing this game, right? I went f***ing off, right? The next game, I went against a bunch of sweats and I went like 3 and like 30. I was like, oh my